welcome everybody back to the High Roller Organization Sports Betting Podcast. This will be our recap for Week 0 and Week 1. Great start, 10-3, cashing. And with that, my only real play of the week, I got to give T the rest of the credit for all these, but my really only play was realizing Nebraska's still Nebraska. Taking Northwestern, taking all those points and getting getting a dog victory right out of the chute. It won't be the last time you hear me talk about different schools being exactly who they are. And unfortunately for Scott Frost, I never wish ill on any coach, but they are who they are. I don't know if there's much more to say. I will say this: the Helinski boy for Northwestern played pretty well.
Yeah,
he definitely deserves an upgrade. I will upgrade a little bit for Northwestern that way, but beyond that, it was. I have to go back to it. It's Nebraska being Nebraska.
I thought Hall did a nice job running the football. He had like 120 yards and a touchdown. Helinski, you mentioned,
was impressive,
especially in the first half. he was firing on all cylinders. And then the big one is, what type of call are you gonna You're up 2 scores, and you kick an onside kick with 9 minutes. I think it was 9:14, if I remember right, to go in the third quarter. You just go up that second score, and then you kick an onside kick and give Northwestern a short field, and it's like, Frost, what are you thinking? But coaching decisions were a major theme throughout Week 0, Week 1.
I would agree. There were a couple
pretty much
that
across
we'll
the
talk
board.
About.
There were some dumb decisions, and people
A
need to
clock management coach would be invaluable to a bunch of you out there.
When to go for 2. If you're down 14, this is when go for 2.
Yeah.
Don't.
But people don't understand math.
No.
That's the problem.
People don't understand math.
But so, moving on though, next game, a game that you did a nice job on here, T. I've got Pitt versus West Virginia.
Yeah, the backyard brawl.
The backyard brawl. Why this isn't played more is beyond me. But your thoughts once again on that Pitt game.
So going into this one, my line was 13. I had Pittsburgh minus 13. I bet and had action on Pittsburgh minus 6.5.
Yeah.
Now, caught a little break, but at the end of the day, that ticket cash is the exact same as a blowout winner. Doesn't matter. We move on to the next one. If you watched our game breakdown video, I mentioned that it was a real possibility that Pittsburgh went more run heavy.
Yeah.
And that was definitely the case. But from our point of view, we had 6.5. They win by 7. We cashed a ticket.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. And then our next game moving along, Michigan State versus Western Michigan. My impression of the game, love the Burger kid, transfer from Wisconsin. My thoughts for Michigan State, give that kid the ball. You give that kid the ball, good things happen for you. But another one you really called, what are your thoughts on that?
This was my biggest play and favorite play of Week 0, Week 1.
We had 3 on this.
This was a max 3-unit play for me. Yeah. I made this line Michigan State minus 29.5. They didn't cover my line, but my line didn't matter. They covered. We had a 16.5 ticket for us because we bet that early.
I'm still very impressed with that Michigan State offensive line and Jalen Berger. So congrats.
Yep.
Congrats. No hard feelings from this Wisconsin alum seeing you in the transfer portal. You great running back in Michigan State. I'm sure is really glad to have him.
Yeah, especially another one, kind of same sentiment as that Pitt game. A win's a win. And that touchdown they scored with 4 minutes left to give them the cover. That was definitely a deep breath. Especially how they started.
That one out, but especially when you had the game rated so high one way. That's why we put 3 units on a play like that. And things like that tend to happen when you have the superior team.
And I thought Thorne would play better than what he did. Even with his dad there, I still thought that it was more of a you're going to play well because your dad's there, and not the added, which is something to note, is the added pressure got to him.
Yeah. The next game that we want to talk about is Michigan versus Colorado State. I mean, my impressions of that game is watching it, big blowout, like JJ. I mean, I got to be honest. I like that kid, and I mean it's tough. That's a tough situation. Got one young man who led you to a Big Ten title, but the future, to me, is apparent.
Yeah.
Just sitting back, but I don't have the read on the locker room. I don't know which way the guys are really feeling about that, but needless to say, that was a W for us. I mean, that was another great call on your part.
Made Michigan about a 35-point favorite.
Yeah.
We had a 28 number that we bet in like July.
Now,
for the most part, my power rankings are already
done,
or at least have a good understanding. And then it's not only where do I see value, but where are the lines going to move.
Yeah.
I mean, predicting the line moves is a big factor in some of the stuff that we bet early as well.
Yeah, especially these early on games. That's a huge factor. That's a great point, T. And that's a difference between being a professional and being a casual. Is you get these opportunities to take advantage of early lines. And this was one of them. So, another game that moving on that we had quite a bit of action on, and ended up coming out in our favor 2-1. Houston versus UTSA.
So when Houston lost their running back, and I thought that they would go Dell and just let Toon kind of sling it.
Yeah.
And that was not the case. I was watching this first half going, please just throw the football. I mean, they're trying to run, and they weren't. UTSA's front seven did a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
For the most part of bottling up the Houston backs. And then they started to open it up a little bit. For a while there, the over was dead.
Yeah.
I mean, and it needed overtime.
Yeah.
But
here's another little key. I remember you giving me a call there Saturday and saying, you know what, Coach, we got to get a unit on the over, because the over in the second half is going to hit. So we bet the second half over, and that's how we turned losing some juice and being 1-on-1 in that game to actually being 2-1. And those will be things as you follow us, and as eventually we start handing out lines, we will be handing out those lines and watch for our in-game plays, because you get a feel. And your point to me was, they're going to start slinging it. This game is going to go over. It's definitely going to be over in the second half.
That was 28.
So we took that over and won a little bit of money that way. So that was another very good call on your part. You know, instead of losing the juice, you win about a unit. So that's a great call. And
even the one that we lost with the Houston -4.5. To be completely honest, if they played again this weekend and they gave me the same line, I would take the line again.
Yeah, I mean, that was the one impression you were giving to me in the game, is Houston was the better team.
UTSA couldn't move the ball on the ground. The only type of traction that they were getting rushing the football was if Harris was scrambling.
Yeah.
If he didn't scramble, and he broke a couple of them, but for the most part, I mean, outside of Harris, they had 41 rushing yards.
Yeah.
For a team that primarily ran the ball. I mean, Harris had a good year last year, but they were run first for the most part. And the wide receivers for UTSA were good, as you kind of expected them to be. Definitely.
And UTSA is going to be a really good team this year. They're going to win a lot of games.
This bet had a lot more to do with what I felt Houston was being undervalued more so than UTSA was being overvalued.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But I'd bet Houston again.
Yeah. At the end of the day, as coaches, we look at it a lot of times where if we played this team 100 times, we would beat them 60 times, they beat us 40 times, or we beat them 70 times, 30 times. So sometimes those outcomes just happen to go against you. So that's kind of from a bettor's point of view. That's why you feel comfortable. You can say things like that, because the outcome is going to be your way more times than not. that's how you make your money. You make your
Yep.
money on the margin. So
One
that
game
was a great game that we didn't have any action on, but I definitely think it'll play in the future with teams that will bet is Utah, Florida. I really, one of these early season games, that's a great game. I'm glad that these two teams scheduled it, and Utah comes out on the short end of the stick. But my impressions of the game were this: Utah was the better team. However, they go into the red zone twice in that game and come away with no points. And when you lose by 3 and you have 2 red zone touches and 0 points to show for them on those 2, to me, that's a deciding factor. Not to take anything away from Florida. I'm actually not going to downgrade Utah much, if at all. But what I am going to do is upgrade Florida because their quarterback, the Richardson kid,
Yeah.
I tell you
He's
what,
good.
he impressed me. He impressed me in that game with his legs, with his ability to make plays, and he's going to win games in the SEC. Early on, I liked Florida, but I kind of downgraded them a little bit. I actually like South Carolina more than I like Florida. After watching this first game, Florida's going to be a tough out in the swamp, no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
That's how I came out of it. The other impression I got, I feel bad for all you Pac-12 followers, but this loss, Utah, I don't see them making it in
No.
to the football playoffs this
Nope.
year. Not a top 4. You can't have a loss like this. Florida is gonna end up. I think they'll be above 500 now. I think they'll be an okay team, but this is just too bad a loss, and it's too bad. I like the Utah team. I like the physicality of them, but my hat's off to Napier and the job that got done there.
I thought Utah was good.
Yeah.
I think overall I downgraded Utah in my power rankings right around between a quarter of a point and a half a point. I'd have to check it. So I did downgrade them just a little bit, just because, it was the loss. We'll see how they bounce back. I like Florida. Richardson was
legit.
his elusiveness, especially I think it was a 2-point conversion, the play that kind of blew up all over social media, where he spun and then hit the guy in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah.
That was a special play.
Yeah. He definitely he was impressive in that game, making plays. Really love his playmaking ability, and that's something as a coach you just can't teach. So, moving on to a game that was played on, I believe it was Sunday night, LSU versus Florida State. Just some plays that you just sit back and you shake your head. And it ended up being a good game. It was a much better game at the end than the snooze fest it was to begin with. My impressions are these. I just don't think either team is a great team. I think both teams will be. Florida State's going to be middle of the pack to maybe win maybe a game or two above 500 in the ACC, and LSU is just not going to be able to compete with the big dogs in the SEC. So
before I get into the breakdown and the action that I ended up having on this game, I just want to say how disappointed I was in some of the All-Americans from LSU and their effort.
Yeah.
You've got guys, they had a couple injuries early to their D-line, but I think I'm pronouncing this right, Butte, the wide receiver, I don't know what to say about, come on. Not only did he not show up, but he looked like he didn't care at all. He should have had a touchdown. That little, slant route that was put basically right on the numbers in his hands, and he didn't even look for the football.
yeah.
You're an All-American in a big game early. You need to show up. And I don't know if it was he felt he was wide open on a play early, that he didn't get the football, but whatever it was completely changed his dynamic.
Yeah, and you can't lose that demeanor.
No.
And that, to me, that Brian Kelly's got to step in, and his position coach has got to step in and take over on that.
Yeah.
So,
But anyway, about the actual game. So, looking at it about the time we recorded the video, I had LSU minus 1.5. That's what I made them. Assuming home field advantage. Now, this game, although it was not played in Death Valley, it was played in the Superdome in New Orleans.
Yep.
So I forget exactly what time I gave you a call, and there was a lot of, I heard rumblings about how well Florida State traveled pretty early on.
Yeah.
And then but sharp money started coming in on LSU, which started driving that up. So for me, an LSU, let me just it's down. A couple points of home field advantage, not quite the same amount as if it would have been like a night game in Death Valley,
Yeah.
like at LSU, but still giving them a couple points. I mean, I had Florida State on a neutral site as the favorite.
Yeah.
So when this move started to come in, I got money down on Florida. I got a unit down on Florida State plus 4.5. Which, as of a couple days prior, I was gonna stay away.
Yeah.
But with the crowd not being heavily slanted towards LSU, and then the movement in the line going up, I felt that it wasn't quite as warranted, and the points I was getting was going to be of some value, thinking that it would be a close game either way. Not necessarily that Florida State would have ended up winning this game outright, but 4.5 to me was worth when it hit the 4.5, and it even started to test 5 in some spots, but we had already gotten our action in. It was worth the play, and it ended up working out for us.
And the next game that we move on to that we just want to talk about a little bit was Georgia-Oregon. The main reason why I want to talk about this one is I want to just gloat a little bit about the fact that I made a bold call saying that Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama would go to the end of the season prior to playing those conference championship games all undefeated, and you're going to see all three of them in the college football playoff. Georgia was the one I was worried about the most. They looked good. I mean, they were dominant.
Yes.
That's all I can say, and they were dominant against a solid Oregon team. I actually had to upgrade Georgia even a smidge because the quarterback, the Bennett kid, he played better than I thought he could play. So kudos to him and all the hard work.
He wasn't a game manager.
No, he was not a game manager. He was a playmaker. So kudos to him. Kudos to the staff there at Kirby Smart and his boys down there at Georgia for getting that team ready to play. They look good. They are worthy of being one of the top number one, if not top two, if not top three teams in the nation. And another marquee game that we just want to touch base on a little bit is Ohio State Notre Dame. Now, once again, gloating on the fact that I don't think Ohio State's going to lose. I was underwhelmed by what Ohio State did offensively. I thought they would be a little better, but I will give Notre Dame credit where credit is due. I'm not a huge Notre Dame fan. Never really rooted for the Irish a lot in my life, and they were in the game for 3 quarters. I mean, they were right there. I like Notre Dame. I liked what they did. What are your thoughts on that one, T?
Going into this, I made Ohio State 17.5 point favorite. Offensively, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about Ohio State. The firepower that they possess. Now, was it a little overblown a little bit to compare them to the Joe Burrow, Mac Jones, LSU and Alabama teams? Potentially. I still think this team by the end of the year is probably going to average close to 50 points a game. I don't think a lot of people are going to stop them.
That O-line's going to have to be better than what they were.
It was a big win for Ohio State. Marquee matchup, top 5 team coming in to Columbus. They got the W. Yeah. I still have Ohio State as the second best team in the country behind Alabama. It's now closer between them and Georgia, but I do have Ohio State ranked number 2. We'll see where they go from here. They won.
Yeah, Ohio State wins at the end of the day. That's all they need to do. Our next game that we want to talk about, you want to talk about that Penn State-Purdue game. Didn't have much. We didn't have anything on it, but what were your impressions?
You have to run some clock.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science on how to. You're up.
Yeah.
Okay, and you have the ball. It's not like you had to get a stop. And I don't want to take anything away from Clifford and the drive that he put together because he didn't have his best game, even though that's Clifford for. He's going to be up, he's going to be down.
Yeah.
But when they needed him the most, he showed up. And they got the win. O'Connell didn't play great. He wasn't very sharp. I mean, he was 29 of 58. So it's not like he was Drew Brees out here completing 70+% of his passes. I mean, he was throwing incomplete passes down the stretch, and they were still throwing the football.
Yep.
And then you wonder why you lose, and it's like
I don't like to come out and do a lot of criticizing of the players or the coaches.
I will,
but the bottom.
Glad I didn't lose money on that.
Yeah, but the bottom line is you got to understand how to win ball games. I mean, with that, I'd much rather talk about one of my favorite teams, Wisconsin, and well, they are my favorite team. Let's be honest. And we actually did put some action on them this week. Good call by you. I held back. I wanted to watch the game as a fan, but found myself rooting for the under, which was a great call on your part. And my thoughts on the game was Wisconsin is Wisconsin. They can run the ball. They can run the ball effectively. Allen is one of the top 5 backs in the nation. I think that goes without saying. Was very pleasantly surprised at how Graham Mertz came out and looked.
He was really good.
Yeah, he was really good in the game. I think he had 2 incompletions the entire game.
One of them was a drop, and the other was thrown away.
Yeah. So I mean, you got to look at the game the perfect there. The defense, it needs to come together a little bit, but it wasn't your atypical Wisconsin defense at this moment in time. But I think Jim Leonard will bring the boys around. That being said, it was the under because
Illinois State wasn't going to score. It won.
Yeah.
Happy about that.
Yeah.
But not every play is going to be a win, and now we got a couple that
now that we got
bet
a couple,
just in transparency that didn't get to the window.
Yeah. Louisiana Tech, Missouri. I did not watch a lot of this ball game, so what can you tell me about that one?
I was feeling really good about this game early. Louisiana Tech was up 3-0 at the end of the first quarter. And they gave up a touchdown to go down 7-3. Was still feeling really good, and then the next play was pick 6.
Yeah.
And it just never quite felt like, even when they were still covering the number, we had 21.5 on our ticket. It just was never.
Yeah.
That one just never quite felt right after the first quarter. But I mean, those games happen.
Yep. Last but not least, here's another one of my teams that being themselves. It just seems like you say this did cost us money, because who'd have thought Iowa was going to play baseball against South Dakota State? All of a sudden, I see the score flash at the bottom of my screen as I'm watching another game, and I see Iowa up 5-3, and then I see a final score of 7-3, and I'm going, you've got to be kidding me! They didn't score a single touchdown.
Again, we had Iowa 10.5.
Yeah, we had Iowa 10.5.
Thinking they'd at least be able to score 2 touchdowns and hold them to 3 points and win 14-3 at least. That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
I mean, their defense outscored their offense on safeties.
Bottom line, though, coaching T 10-3.
Yep.
You gotta love it. You gotta love when you start off. You're plus. Essentially we're plus about 6.5 units overall when it's all said and done with how you play the juices and whatnot. And that's a great start. That's a great start to the year.
Yep.
That's our recap show, and
hopefully
if we can keep this up, we'll definitely be we'll be
doing
smiling.
all right.
So, all right. Well, with that, I want to once again thank the High Roller organization for sponsoring us and putting us on the air. And we enjoy all your comments coming back and forth to us, even if you're taking jabs at us, especially T. He loves answering back, and we'll go from there. We're transparent type of guys. So I mean, say what you want, and make the comments, and we'll anybody thinks we're going the wrong way with something,
tell me.
Yeah.
We'll go from there. At the end of the day, if you do go against us, best of luck.
Yep, best of luck. Hope your ticket cashes, but I hope mine does first. So, with that, best of luck to all of you, and make sure you cash those tickets. Take care.